Hi there, I'm your host, John Ivison. I'm joined, as usual, by Marcella Monroe, who's the principal at Macmillan Vantage, and Andrew Balfour, who's managing partner at Rubicon Strategies. And since we were all in the nation's capital for the English language debate, which is tonight, we decided we would convene in the staff cafeteria on Parliament Hill, which is otherwise known as Metropolitan Brasserie. So welcome to the capital. Marcella, you're normally in Toronto. You're always, well, you live here, so not just in Ottawa, but actually in this bar. So you mentioned off camera earlier that you think that Erin O'Toole has hit his ceiling. How can you back that up?
I don't know. I just don't know, based on where the numbers are at, where does he still have growth? He already has all of Western Canada. He doesn't seem to be gaining a ton of ground in BC. Atlantic doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Quebec doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And the 905, I mean, he's going to pick up seats, but I don't think that he's going to get enough.
Now, to be fair, he has not been in the 905.
No.
And I think in the coming week, we're going to see all of the leaders spending time driving around Brampton, Mississauga, and so on. I mean, do you think he's hit his ceiling?
I'm not as convinced about that. He has been in the 905 though, John, because what they've been doing, and the Conservatives got very good at this in Ontario, we saw the last campaign, is they've been doing these Facebook live events. Right. So not only have they been in the 905, but you might say he's been in the 905 much more efficiently and more directly contacting voters than we've seen with the other campaigns.
Some of these tele town halls have been getting crazy numbers, right?
Huge pickup.
Right, but you can also, I mean, the thing about the micro-targeting feature of that is you can go by postal code. So they can go right into the living rooms or the office spaces of the very voters that they think are either leaning conservative or could be leaning conservative and talk directly to them. So that's a lot better in some ways than some of these campaign events.
It's even more than postal code. Like, you can go like address.
Yeah, you can go street by street.
And what we haven't seen much of, I don't think, is a specific ethnic outreach. Now, the Conservatives obviously did that under Stephen Harper. They seem to have let that go. And, you know, these seats go in lockstep. I think if you win one in Brampton, you tend to win them all. There doesn't seem to be any signs yet of a mass shift there, do you think?
I don't think that's true. I mean, it might be under the waterline. I guarantee it's happening. Like, maybe it's just not as blatant as we're used to, but I'm sure that is happening.
Yeah. No,
and particularly around things like auxiliary tour. Like, I don't know where certain MPs or from the Conservatives or certain ministers from the government have been. Like, I don't know where they're sending them, but I mean, I'm sure we could look on Facebook and figure it out. But I guarantee that's happening.
But also, we're not, most of us anyway, I mean, I haven't yet, right? Are you monitoring, say, Punjabi radio in some of those ridings?
Right.
Because that's the way, if I'm going to buy ads there, they're in Punjabi, they're on those private radio stations, you wouldn't know about them necessarily.
For sure. The other big thing, I think, in this election is what I've called Project Fear. The idea that in the last few days of the campaign, the Liberals bring up the pantomime villain of the Conservative Party to try and scare the Progressives back into the Liberal ranks. Marcella, do you think I mean, it worked in 2019. We saw post-debate, Jagmeet took off like a meteor, not a meteor, a rocket. And
meteor goes the other way.
but they didn't have any money to support it, and eventually it fizzled. They seem to be in better shape this time.
I think financially they're in better shape, but listen, here's the challenge the NDP has with their polling numbers, which are quite buoyant, but a lot of that is being buoyed up by their very strong leading numbers in British Columbia, right? So you're seeing a bit of a higher national average because they're winning in British Columbia. It's a three-way race there, but the NDP is leading, right? And so if you look at it that way, then you look at Ontario, if you look at the more regional numbers, the NDP isn't really outperforming what they're used to outperforming, right? They're still struggling in the 416. The Liberals are still, it looks like, going to win most of, if not everything, in the 416. And in the 905, they haven't really seen an uptick. So I think that message works in Ontario. We know it works in Ontario. I'm not convinced the Liberal, Pied Piper come home progressive message works the same way in British Columbia. British Columbia is a different political culture.
Yeah, I was talking to the NDP, and then they say they're ready this time, that they won't run out of steam, and they say our digital get out the vote effort is much better this time, and they're using Twitch. Now, I had to look up to find out what Twitch is, but TikTok. Now, he gets 5 million people on some of his TikTok hits. They're going to Nintendo Game Boy or one of these gaming stations.
You have no idea what it is either.
I've seen it in a shop.
Which is great if you're a 14-year-old boy, by the way.
Right, but I mean, what about if you're an 18-year-old boy and you're thinking of voting? I mean, are we going to see voters who didn't vote last time?
Well, just jumping back to something that Marcella said about the regionality of the whole thing, is that the Liberal Party doesn't have a lot of seats in BC to start with. So, if you're doing the math around it, and say they lose 4 seats in BC, it's not going to be the end of it for them.
Plus 2 or 3 in Atlantic Canada.
Well, we disagree on this anyways, but
the
it's a break even in Atlantic.
The Liberals went negative really early. I mean, I think it was almost a Hail Mary because it looked like O'Toole might just run away with this thing, and then the guns thing happened. What do they have left to hit O'Toole with if he keeps rising?
Well, I think I'd run, the first ad I would run is just about from their convention when they denied climate change. And you just blast that out across
it's
Ontario.
been mentioned obliquely, but it's not been specifically from centre.
I would run an ad just on that. I'd also run an ad saying, he ran to become leader as a right-wing guy, and now he's trying to become prime minister by being a progressive conservative. And be like, oh, flip-flop.
And I think we can see both those ads coming. I mean, to be fair, the ad game changes at this point, right? Because what all parties are trying to do at the beginning is figure out what the contrast is that works. So part of that is just the to and fro the daily campaign part of its research. It looks like the Liberals have found something that works because they have a very big ad buy right now, basically making a bunch of the points that Andrew just made. And I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see some of those targeted messages that he's talking about. Again, you won't see them necessarily on your TV screens, but they will be going directly to voters.
However this ends up, it has not been a stellar campaign for Justin Trudeau. Are you a proud Liberal based on this campaign? I would hope not.
Well, I'm obviously still voting for him. Well, the Prime Minister.
Let me not put you in that delicate spot, but let's ask 2 questions. 1, can he survive as leader? And 2, can he bring the country back together again? He's alienated a lot of people in this campaign.
I think I would hope there's some regret in the Liberal ranks because this campaign didn't need to happen, and they're kind of going to get a big lesson. If I had to be asked today, I would say we probably are going to get another minority government. It might be blue or red. I'm not really sure right now. But I think they made a huge mistake at the outset of wrapping the campaign around him personally. He's just not as personally popular as he was. The Liberal brand is still quite strong. I would have run a very different campaign. So, I think they're looking a lot better today than they were, say, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, the coming out of the gate, very problematic.
You've got a disunited country as a result.
Well, I don't think that we can blame Justin Trudeau for having a disunited country. We had a disunited country before the campaign started.
But he's exacerbated some of those divisions with us and then rhetoric on vaccines and well, I think if you win this campaign, you've got the job of putting the country back together again.
I don't know that I think we're as divided as you're saying we are. We're not that divided on the vaccination question, right? We have a 19 or 20% of Canadians are opposed to vaccination or opposed to some of the message around it.
Well, there's 84% with first vaccination, so you presume that it's about 15% maximum.
It depends on what divisions you're talking about, I guess, because I don't see the country as that divided. Do I think he's done a great job in this campaign? No. I don't think it's been a great campaign for him, but I agree with Andrew.
Let's quickly wrap up. People's Party, could they be a spoiler, Andrew?
Well, absolutely. If they're, if you look at the ECOS number from yesterday, they're at 9%. That vote isn't coming from Justin Trudeau. Maybe that doesn't translate into winning seats, but it makes it, we've talked about this before, it makes it so that the splits end up going the Liberals' way.
Yeah. Do you think that could be a crucial?
It could be. It's so hard to know, right? Because on the one hand, you think, well, they haven't really got a ton of coverage. I did see a first ad from them on TV today, which I was a little bit surprised about. But they are seeming to be able to mobilize at least hundreds of people. But we don't know if those people have ever voted or if they intend to really vote. So who knows? I guess we'll find out on election day.
So guys, what do we expect to see in the remainder of the campaign? Marcella?
Well, I think we know where the leaders are going to be pretty much, right? Because the battlegrounds have been set. It's still Quebec. Mainly it's a Bloc Liberal race in Quebec. The Conservatives haven't really made gains there. It's going to be if you're in the 905, you can expect to see those leaders' buses probably a lot in the next little while. And then the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, where again, while the NDP has a small but significant lead, those ridings tend to be in play. And there's some weird ridings there that tend to be like, there's conservative NDP ridings, there's liberal conservative ridings, there's liberal NDP ridings. So
and there's one that's all three.
Yeah,
Port
that's
Moody
right.
Coquitlam,
That's
which
right.
was won by about 5 votes or something.
And then, you look at Granville, like that's in play. You look at, I look around, I guarantee that we'll see all of the leaders go and, Trudeau and O'Toole will both hit Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba. Like they're going to have to go and do one last breeze through those places. But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of bus time. It's not going to be a lot of plane time. It'll be a lot of bus time.
Well, I think
You'll be on the bus.
But there will be some plane. I mean, they have to go to BC, and I think
Right.
Trudeau will be there over the weekend, perhaps.
yeah, but I think we're going to see some interesting races in Alberta this time. I mean, I can't remember I don't think we've had a federal campaign in my lifetime where the Conservative
Well, one or two
Party,
seats generally, but
Sure,
this is
but
4
the
or 5.
Conservative Party
right?
is only getting 50% in Alberta, which sounds ridiculous, but usually that number is more like 70. So we know that there's probably some seats in urban Calgary and Edmonton in play.
So if you were pushed to predict, Marcella, what do you think?
I mean, guessing today, which is a guessing game, I would say it's going to be a minority government. Whether it's Liberal or Conservative, I have no idea.
And you think minority or liberal?
Liberal minority, I think like 147 to 150 seats. That's what I think. With pickups in like random places that, like Alberta, like Calgary Skyview. I think that in the end that I don't know how this is going to happen. And I think it's almost like the Prime Minister should like thank Jason Kenney, but like he's going to like win the seat there and maybe one in Edmonton because of Jason Kenney.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.